Yatora stands in front of his graduation piece and realizes it's not good enough. Not technically, the brushwork's solid, the composition works, the concept is clear, but it's safe. Polished. The kind of art that gets approval without making anyone feel anyone real. And that realization hits him like a gut punch because he spent years chasing technical mastery, trying to prove he belongs in this world, trying to silence the voice that says he's a fraud who stumbled into art too late to ever catch up to people who've been drawing since childhood. The piece in front of him is everything he thought he wanted. Competent, respectable, exactly what his mentors would expect. And it's a lie. It doesn't show who he actually is. It shows who he thinks he should be, and that gap is suffocating. So he scraps it. Days before the exhibition, with no safety net, he starts over. Not with a plan, not with certainty, just with the terrifying honesty of putting everything he's been too scared to show onto canvas. The doubt, the inadequacy, the fear that choosing art means failing at life. The new piece is raw, ugly in places, vulnerable in ways that make him want to hide it, but it's real. And when his mentors see it, when his peers see it, the silence that follows isn't judgment, it's recognition. They're seeing Yatora for the first time. Not the careful student who colors inside lines, but the person who's been screaming inside those lines for years. But that's just the start. Here's how it all unravels. Blue Period has always been about the violence of pursuing art in a world that demands practical success. Yatora started as a high-achieving student who did everything right. Good grades, popular friend group, clear path to a stable future. Then he discovered painting and realized everything he'd been doing was performance, playing a role he never chose. Art became the first thing that felt real, but choosing it meant abandoning safety and stepping into a world where talent isn't enough, where technical skill is baseline and vision is what separates amateurs from artists. The entire series has been watching him struggle with that transition, trying to develop vision while constantly questioning whether he has the right to even be here. Volume 16's graduation exhibition is the culmination of that journey. Tokyo University of the Arts is brutally competitive. Getting in was the first test. Surviving the coursework, the critiques, the constant comparison to peers who've been immersed in art their entire lives, that's been the grinding daily reality. Yatora's worked himself to exhaustion trying to close the gap between where he started and where everyone else began. He's learned technique, studied theory, absorbed criticism until it became an internal voice that never shuts up. And now he has to create something that represents all of that growth. Something that proves the last few years weren't a mistake. The emotional breakthrough happens when he realizes perfection is a cage. His first graduation piece was technically flawless because he'd learned to execute what others taught him. But execution without personal truth is just skilled mimicry. Art that's afraid to be vulnerable, that prioritizes approval over honesty, doesn't connect with anyone because there's nothing beneath the surface to connect with. Scrapping that safe piece and starting over with raw emotion is Yatora finally trusting that his perspective matters. That the awkward late-to-art kid who still doesn't feel like he belongs has something worth saying precisely because of that outsider view. The goodbyes to friends add another layer of bittersweetness. These are people who went through the same brutal program, who supported each other through breakdowns and late nights, and critiques that felt like character assassination. But graduation scatters them. Some are pursuing art careers, others are stepping back, choosing different paths, acknowledging that loving art doesn't mean you have to suffer for it professionally. Those diverging paths force everyone to confront what they actually want versus what they thought they were supposed to want. Yatora, watching friends make different choices, has to reconcile his own decision. Is he choosing art because it's genuinely his path, or because he's too invested to quit now? The fan response to Volume 16 is intense because these themes hit universally. Anyone who's pursued something creative, anyone who's questioned their talent or place in a competitive field, anyone who's had to choose between passion and practicality sees themselves in Yatora's struggle. The speed paints and fan art flooding social media aren't just appreciation, they're dialogue. Fans processing their own creative journeys through Yatora's breakthrough. The decision to scrap the safe piece and start over is Yatora's most important character moment in the entire series. It's easy to play it safe when you're insecure. Safety means you can't fail spectacularly, but it also means you can't succeed in any meaningful way. Yatora's been operating from fear. Fear of being exposed as inadequate? Fear of proving everyone who doubted his late start correct? Fear that vulnerability will be punished rather than rewarded? Choosing to create something raw and honest despite that fear is growth that goes beyond artistic skill. It's accepting that connection requires risk. That the art that matters is the art that could fail because it's trying to communicate something true rather than something polished. The new piece being ugly in places is crucial. Yatora's technical training taught him to eliminate flaws, to smooth rough edges, to present work that meets professional standards. But sometimes flaws are where the humanity lives. The imperfections in his graduation piece aren't mistakes. They're the parts where emotion overwhelmed technique, where what he needed to express mattered more than how it looked. That's the shift from craftsman to artist. Craftsmen execute perfectly. Artists communicate truth, and truth is messy. The fact that his mentors and peers respond to the messiness rather than criticizing it validates that risk, shows him that authenticity resonates in ways perfection never will. The emotional goodbyes highlight the cost of the path Yatora's chosen. Art school creates intense bonds because everyone's going through the same trauma together, but those bonds are temporary. People scatter after graduation, pursuing different versions of success or stepping away entirely. Some of Yatora's friends are continuing down the professional artist path, accepting the instability and struggle that comes with it. Others are choosing stability, recognizing that their relationship with art works better as passion than profession. Those different choices aren't about who loves art more. They're about sustainable life design. Yatora watching friends make those decisions forces him to articulate why he's staying on this path. Is it because he can't imagine doing anything else? Because he finally found something that feels like his? Because quitting would mean admitting the last few years were a waste? Untangling those motivations is the work Volume 16 is doing. The series-defining nature of this volume comes from how it resolves the central tension that's driven the entire story. Does Yatora belong in the art world? For 16 volumes, that question has haunted him. He's the late starter, the outsider, the one who's always catching up. But the graduation piece proves that perspective isn't a weakness. Being an outsider means seeing things differently. Starting late means choosing art consciously rather than defaulting into it. The struggle to belong has shaped his voice in ways that early start artists might never develop because they never had to question their place. Yatora's breakthrough is realizing that his insecurity, his outsider status, his constant self-doubt, all of it is material. All of it informs his work. All of it is valid subject matter for art that connects. The fan response creating speed paints and recreating Yatora's pieces shows the series has transcended being just a story about art. It's become a catalyst for people engaging with their own creativity. That's the highest achievement any creative work can reach, inspiring creation rather than just consumption. Fans aren't just reading about Yatora's journey, they're using it as permission to pursue their own, to take creative risks, to accept that starting from uncertainty is valid, and that vulnerability in art is strength rather than weakness. The lore callback to earlier volumes where Yatora first discovered art through that painting in the classroom adds symmetry. That moment was about seeing possibility, realizing that art could be more than decoration, that it could communicate emotion and truth in ways language couldn't. The graduation piece is him finally delivering on that possibility, creating work that does what he saw in that first painting, makes people feel something real, something they might not have words for but recognize immediately. That's the arc completing, from witnessing art's power to wielding it himself, from outsider to artist, from someone chasing approval to someone trusting their voice. If Volume 16 really is the series-defining moment fans are calling it, if Yatora's graduation breakthrough represents the culmination of everything Blue Period has been building toward, then what comes next isn't about proving he belongs anymore, it's about what he does with that belonging. Whether the art world outside school is ready for someone who refuses to play it safe. And whether choosing this path means accepting a life of beautiful struggle or finding a way to make vulnerability sustainable.